It's been live streamed.
Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year to you all. It's 6 o'clock, so we shall start. The meeting is being webcast live on YouTube. My name is Councillor David Beeman, and I'm chairman of this committee, and I'm accompanied by my vice chair, Councillor Penny Rivers. Members and officers, please raise your hand to indicate that you wish to speak. Please can I also ask any questions get brief and to the point. I would like to remind ward councillors and one involved tonight, separately from the committee, on applications in the ward are being considered and voted on by the committee. Right, shall we start with the one? Apologies, absence and substitutes.
There have been no apologies received.
All right. Minutes of the last meeting. Does the committee approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of November 2023 and published on the council's website as a correct record of that meeting?
Right.
Declaration of interest letter.
Alan Robson had one though.
Oh, right, of course. You can't?
Alan, did you want to
Yeah.
declare your interest?
Yeah, Surrey Wildlife, who actually have been involved in this particular application.
Okay, right, noted. Right, next item is questions by members of the public. Lila?
We have had a question, Chair, that is currently being considered by the Executive Head of Planning, and a response will be sent by email.
And Chair, just to confirm on that matter, the question that's been asked relates to the planning application for a discharge of condition, and therefore it's not a matter that can be discussed at the planning committee.
Right. Could you get an answer in due course, yes?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right, okay. Next item, questions from members. Lila?
None received.
Right, any relevant updates to the government guidance on legislation from that meeting? I think, Claire, you wish to?
Yes, so just for members of the planning committee's awareness, as I'm sure you're all now aware, the NPPF was published a few days before Christmas. There are some changes in terms of what is in it and the implications for the borough. So we will be producing a comprehensive note between myself and Andrew's new policy team, and it will circulate to all members, just setting out what those changes are and what implications they may or may not have in planning within the borough. And I anticipate that note should be circulated probably by the end of next week.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we all look forward to reading that with great anticipation. Right. Well, we're going to have one item on the agenda tonight, and we're all here. Thank you very much for all turning up on a cool night. But one item is not strict public speaking, but the applicant has asked to speak on behalf of the application, and at my discretion, I have allowed him to do so. But it must be quite clear. I want to make quite clear that my discretion and not to use a precedent in any other case. Right, it is WA 2023-02173, land at 1 and 2, London Cottage, Hedgehog Lane, Hazelmere, G272PA. An outline application with all matters reserved except access for the erection of 4 dwellings, following the demolition of 2 dwellings, garages and parking area, a revision of an earlier application, WA 2023-00628. 682 rather. And Omar Sharif is officer to present the case. Omar,
Yep.
over to you.
Okay, yeah, this application has been brought forward for planning committee following the call in from councillor Weldon. Just by way of a verbal update with reference to section 10 and which is the 5-year land housing supply position and the section 23 conclusion of the officer report. Waverley Borough Council obviously cannot at this present time demonstrate a 5-year land housing supply. As such, plans and decisions should apply a presumption in favour of sustainable development, and where this is not possible, a tilted balance should be engaged. However, the NPPF under paragraph 11DI disapplies the tilted balance where the application of policies in this framework that protect areas or assets of particular importance provides a clear reason for refusing the development proposed. Footnote 7 contains a complete list of the NPPF policies that protect areas or assets of particular importance for the purposes of paragraph 11DI. This list includes the policies relating to the area of outstanding natural beauty. Thus, paragraph 182 requires decision makers to assess whether the proposed development conserves or enhances landscape and scenic beauty inter alia AONBs, and to give great weight to the objective of conserving and enhancing its landscape and scenic beauty. Obviously, if members were to consider that this application was acceptable, then there would be no harm to the AONB, then the tilted balance exercise would be engaged. However, it is being, as well as in the conclusion. However, officers view that this has not been engaged. Yeah. Okay, the site of Longdean House comprises a large Victorian building and undesignated heritage asset accessible from Hedgehog Lane to the northeast. Longdean House is set up on top of a hill and is seen within the context of Longdean cottages and the lodge, and is surrounded on all sides by relatively large gardens with fields beyond. The application site lies to the south of the developed area of Hazelmere. Although the site is outside of the Hazelmere settlement boundary, it abuts its western boundary with a low-density suburban development to the east. Longdean House is split into the following sub-areas. Area A, which is the area of land adjacent to the access road. Area B, which this application site applies to, is the existing semi-detached dwellings. Area C, Longdean House. Area D, the existing glass houses. Some images are attached onto this diagram here. To the north and northwest of the applicant, to give some context, to the north and northwest of the application site is the Strutt Farm development of 132 dwellings, reserve matters. And to this, the second permitted new dwelling is located close to Longdean House, and this is also reserve matters. The site itself had which was granted outline with access and landscaping to be determined for the erection of 3 dwellings following demolition of 2 existing dwelling glass houses and outbuilding under reference WA 2019-0337. That application also granted full permission for the change of use and alterations of Longdean House from office to a single dwelling house, together with the erection of a detached garage and associated landscaping. Decision notice was issued in May 2019. A replacement submission was made under reference WA 2022-0639 in relation to the reserve matters for Area B only. That application was granted in 17th of June 2022. That application essentially made changes to the design and external materials to be used and downgraded the actual application site to 2 dwellings. An outline application for 4 dwellings was withdrawn last year, which was identical to this application site, more of which is discussed later in this presentation. As can be seen on this diagram, the site is located within the countryside beyond the greenbelt, outside of any defined settlement area. Policy RE1 of the local plan states that in this area, the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside will be recognised and safeguarded in accordance with the NPPF, the AONB and AGLV. The immediate site itself shows that this is a well-contained and screened amongst landscape trees and the existing Longdean House and Longdean Lodge, and therefore the existing situation on site is unrelated to any of those previous context applications that were shown on the previous slide. The cottage follows the traditional pattern of development in the immediate vicinity, that is, development set back from the access lane with the existing hard-standing garage and parking area to the immediate north of the site, away from the main view of the properties. The next series of photos demonstrates these characteristics. This first photo is taken from the front of the existing cottage with its relationship to the access lane, which is clearly defined. Next one. This actual site photo shows the side of the property to its rear lawn area, which is currently undeveloped. This shows the car parking area to the north of the site of the existing dwelling house within the red line. It is nestled amongst a backdrop of trees. This photo shows Longdean House, which is immediately adjacent to the site. It shows the ornament windows, arts and crafts style character of this undesignated heritage asset, which has been partly replicated in the most recent approval of this site, which is discussed later on in this presentation. Next slide, please. Okay. This is the actual proposal, which is obviously it's outlined. It's proposed indicative layout. It shows the positioning and overall building form for 4 residential dwellings, which result in a net gain of 2 extra dwellings on the site from the previous reserved matters approval. Again, whilst indicative, the application shows a build-up of hard standing area in the central area of the site and elongated pattern of development form. Whilst it's accepted that they have not formally rejected this current application, it's worth pointing out previous comments of the AONB officer under the previously withdrawn proposal, which is for identical scheme to this application, where it was stated by him that the extra 2 dwellings on site would spread development across undeveloped area of the land. Okay, this next slide demonstrates the existing application site to the left compared to the recent approval in the middle of the diagram, and that of the form of the outline application to the right. As can be seen in this comparative diagram, the consented detached dwellings in the recently approved reserve matters application allow for the footprints to be inset further west into the curtilage of the plot and north of the site over the existing hard standing and parking areas to allow for the front garages to be accommodated to the site's east. It was considered at the time that this would not be a complete detachment from the layout in the officer's report of the existing dwelling houses, and that it would be subservient to Longdean House and the general overall arts and crafts style of the houses at the time, and would not be overtly harmful to the landscape character. It's acknowledged that there will be hard standing areas to formalise the parking attached to each proposed plot, arranged as a central courtyard within this permission. However, officers consider that the presence of 4 detached dwellings and net gain of 2 from the previous approval would result in a spread of significant amount of built form, which would have a harmful urbanising effect on the countryside. It's therefore considered, by virtue of the scale of the development, the layout of its positioning and form of proposed development, that it would be a disproportionate increase of the plot and would not appear sympathetic to the character of the surrounding area. When considering the impact of the proposed development on the significance of a designated heritage asset, great weight should be given to the asset's conservation, and the more important the asset, the greater the weight. This is irrespective of whether any potential harm amounts to substantial harm, total loss, less than substantial harm to its significance. Paragraph 209 of this MPPF states that the effect of an application on the significance of a non-designated heritage asset should be taken into account in determining application. In weighing applications that directly or indirectly affect non-designated heritage assets, a balanced judgment will be required having regard to the scale of any harm or loss and significance of the heritage asset. Whilst no details are provided in this application, given the outline nature of the application, note that the previously withdrawn scheme proposed 3-storey dwellings without providing details. Within this application, it stated the proposed building heights to be limited to 2 stories. It's also stated, without providing details, the ridge heights will remain below the skyline and the trees remaining no higher than that of the already granted permission. Whilst it's noted in section 12 of the officer's report and discusses the general appearance, little weight is afforded to this in general terms. However, officers consider that the longitudinal and modern forms are introduced to replace the existing cottages and the recent approved scheme in Area B, and which therefore would be a result in a less than substantial harm to the significance of Longdean House, which is an designated heritage asset by virtue of the increase in built form, increased height standing area, and complete attachment to the local typology of buildings. In conclusion, refusal is recommended in the view that the tilted balance is not engaged. It's a harmful urbanizing impact to the countryside, and by virtue of the form of proposed development, it would be unsympathetic to the character of the area, the AONB, and style of Longdean House and the Lodge. Less than substantial harm to the significance of the undesignated heritage asset, in this case, Longdean House. Okay, it's done.
Thank you very much, Omar. Well, that was a fine meeting, it's interesting. Right, as I said, this is not a night for public speaking generally, but the applicant did ask for the opportunity to address the committee, so I have agreed at my discretion, so you will like to do that. It mustn't be taken as a precedent, I will stress that. So I have Mr. Ryan Snow. Mr. Ryan Snow, you have 4 minutes, Mr. Snow, to give your case.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Is it possible to put that contextual site plan back up or
Yeah.
we put in? Thank you very much for allowing me to make a representation this evening.
Can everybody hear you? Can you speak up a little bit?
Yes.
We're not in our usual home today.
No microphones this evening. I'll speak as loud as I can.
Yeah.
I'm sure the plan will come up in a moment. Shall I continue?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Here we have a site that was granted detailed planning permission in 2022 for 2 substantial 5-bed dwellings. To put it into context, each of the permitted dwellings would have a footprint of circa 250 square metres, each set within a garden extending half an acre. This new application effectively breaks up the permitted area of development so as to provide 4 smaller family-sized dwellings in a highly sustainable location. In essence, this proposal is much more closely aligned with the identified need for family homes as set out in Waverley's planning policies. Bearing in mind there hasn't been a single objection to this application from either statutory consultees or any member of the public, and that the principle of residential development on this site has already been established, we are surprised that officers are not supportive of an application that additionally makes better use of the land in accordance with paragraph 128 of the NPPF. With respect to the officers, there are a number of inaccuracies in their report, which most likely led to their recommendation to refuse. Unfortunately, the report fails to recognise that the application is in outline form with all matters reserved save for access. The comments within the report suggesting all of the dwellings would look the same, or that the design would be modern, are based on assumptions and do not form part of the scheme before you. These comments should carry no weight. It will be open to the council and members, if they so choose, to control the exact location, scale, design and materials of the proposed dwellings at reserved matters stage. Furthermore, any suggestion that the proposal would cause harm to the character of the countryside, AGLB and AONB is entirely to the contrary of the supportive view provided by the Surrey Hills AONB advisor. They state that they do not consider the scheme to have a wider impact on the protected landscape because, in part, it would be on land of negligible landscape merit and would be well screened by existing tree cover. These comments have not been given due weight by officers. In addition, Hazelmere Town Council has confirmed in its response that it is supportive of the development proposals. The Highway Authority likewise has no objections. Surrey Wildlife Trust find the proposal acceptable and has concluded that the development can produce net biodiversity gain. This proposal is very similar to recent consented schemes of Dean End Farm and Sturt Farm Barn, both of which are within a few hundred metres of the current application site. I was the agent for both of those schemes. They also proposed the development of land to provide 4 and 5 dwellings respectively. Both applications, like this one, were supported by the Town Council, by the AONB advisor and permitted by Waverley's planning officers. Those decisions strongly indicate that the current scheme is also acceptable in planning terms. Hazelmere needs more family homes. There have been no objections to this application. It is not contentious, and earlier decisions made by Waverley would indicate that it should be supported. This is an opportunity to provide 2 additional family-sized wooden core dwellings, 4 in total across the site, when Waverley cannot demonstrate an adequate housing supply as confirmed by officers this evening. As such, I respectfully request that you support the scheme.
Thank you very much. 3 minutes, 53 seconds. Well, yeah, well done. Right, now the ward councillor, one of the ward councillors, Terry Weldon, wishes to speak to this application, because you called it in, didn't you, Terry, actually? Terry, you have 4 minutes now, and if you so wish, and if I can remember, you'll have 4 minutes after the debate, if you so wish. Terry, your 4 minutes start.
Thank you. First of all, I feel a little embarrassed to have called this in for a single application for a meeting, but nevertheless, I think there's an important principle here that which we need to establish. Before I get to the principle, let's go back a little bit. Mr. Snow referred to the fact that this is not contentious within the community. I agree with that completely. I'm not here to speak. I don't have a mandate to speak on behalf of the town council, but I can tell you that when it came before the town council, there were no objections. I can also tell you that a major community group, the Hazelmere Society, wrote me today to say that they also have no objection in principle. They do have one concern I will come back to in a minute. So there really are no objections, and the only letter submitted to Waverley was in fact in support of the application. Mr. Snow has referred to the AONB, and the AONB is really important. As part of the larger context of the site, Emma has already pointed out there's a lot of separate parcels. One of those is a fairly significant proposal for housing on the one corner of the site, which is very much AONB, and which the society has which Hazelmere and the society have strongly opposed in the past. However, this particular application we believe is quite different. Surrey Hills AONB in their response have pointed out that while it is technically within the AONB land, the particular location is in the shadow of Longdean House. It's well sheltered and screened, and in practice it would in their view would not harm the AONB concept. So they have no objections. There are no other objections either. I was interested in the, I know the site reasonably well. I've actually visited one of those 2 cottages in a personal capacity a couple of times, so I can easily see it. I recognise those photographs you've been shown, and I would point out that one of the photographs that was shown was of a parking area behind the house, which is actually unsightly. I believe that this application would be an improvement in the aesthetic of the area. So, the really important principle that I referred to earlier is the fact that, as I've pointed out, we are not meeting the housing targets. We do need family accommodation in Hazelmere. The regulations are that if we're not meeting our target, then there is a presumption in favour of sustainable development unless there are overriding objections. I do not believe there are overriding objections. The only concern that the Hazelmere Society raised, it was a matter of design. And as Mr. Snow pointed out, this is an outline application. Issues of design are not relevant at this stage. I'm quite sure that the proposals can accommodate any concerns we have over design in their final submission. I believe as an outline application, there really is no need to refuse, and I'm done. Thank you.
Well, you do have an option on another 4 minutes at the end of the bit. First of all questions to the officer. Any questions from members of the community to the officer of his presentation? Councillor Rubini.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to point out, I'm sorry, I didn't realise I was going to mention what Mr. Councillor Melden did, but I am a member of the Hazelmere Society, and I want to point that out as he's mentioned.
And you too, yes.
Yeah,
Legislative, yeah, okay. Any questions from the members, or do we want to end the debate right away? Oh,
I just,
Jason?
I'd just like to know, is it in an elevated position, this house? Is it visible from, is this site visible from elsewhere?
Or Mark?
But as I said, yeah, let's just where is it on here? So it's set on top of the hill as in, and it's seen within the context of Longding Cottages and the lodge. So I mean, it's well screened, so it's sort of nestled within its, as I tried to explain and separate it from the other application sites, that this site should be considered on its own merits, that it's obviously well contained by its existing landscape.
Okay, Caitlin?
Yeah, I suppose I'm just trying to work out, is it because you can't, can you see this from here or around here? Can you see that site?
There's no vantage points from any sort of lower ground.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions, or shall we enter the debate? Right, any councillor wish to speak on this item? Really? Councillor Coburn, to the rescue.
If in doubt, well, I was waiting for Hazelmere to speak.
Yes.
So I wasn't going to speak first of all, but I have to say, I think you were quite right, Councillor Weldon, to call it in. I can understand the arguments both ways, but you know, given the site, and some of us visited this site over and over again over the years to see various things, but given the position of this application on this site and the planning history already of two houses, what the inspector said at one of the appeals, the fact that the AONB officer is not speaking against it, Hazelmere Town Council is not speaking against it, Hazelmere Society is not speaking against it. You know, we still have to look at policy just because nobody's objected. And we've had application after application in with far greater assets and far more harm to policy RE1 than is envisaged here, that have actually been allowed, you know, quite large applications. Here, we've got, to say, permission for two. Certainly, I would want to look carefully at the design of these houses because of where they are, but as has been pointed out several times, this is outline. And really, looking at the car park, knowing the cottages, knowing the entrance, I really can't see that 4 family homes would be so harmful to an area of the AONB that the officer hasn't even wanted to protect, that we could really defend it. And I must say, unless I hear something to the contrary, I think this is quite acceptable. Thank you.
Councillor Rubini.
Yes, thanks, Chairman. I think I tend to agree. I enjoyed the previous application, as you can see on there, with the 2 houses, which seemed to fit quite nicely on that site. It's now, of course, come back to have 4 houses on it, which fits within the boundary. The only downside to all this is the letter that the applicant sent to all the councillors criticising our officers. I've got every faith in my officers, and I do wish that any criticism of our officers wasn't perhaps put in that manner. So overall, I suppose Councillor Coburn said and Councillor Weldon says, as long as it's built in a sympathetic manner, because this, of course, is only outline permission. So my problem is that when this is built, I would try and insist if we have that power to actually make sure that this is built in a manner that actually coincides with the rest of the houses around that site. Again, in the letter it mentioned that other buildings nearby were built in a different way. That doesn't mean to say this one should be. So if we can have a condition on there to say that it should be built in a sympathetic manner with the same sort of stone, etc., then I would probably approve it. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Keane.
Well, I do agree with Councillor Rubini and Councillor Coburn that any building on this site should be sympathetic to what's already there. I think that's very, very important because otherwise you can have the most horrendous designs put up and nothing can be done. So I do agree with that. I personally prefer the two houses, but as you say, looking at it, I suppose I could accept it. I have to say though, these houses won't be affordable. Let's be honest. These will be for people that can well afford to buy a very expensive home. So that's my one downside to this. But yes, so I have to think about this very carefully. Thank you.
Any other council wishes to speak? No? Right. Councillor Weldon, do you want another 4 minutes?
Yes, very briefly, I just want to respond to a question that was asked directly. The question is, will the site be visible? Now, it's been pointed out, it sits on the top of a hill. Part of that site, the larger site, which I said earlier, is very controversial and we object to strongly, is very much visible from the lower area. This particular site is well screened. And part of the representation from Surrey Hills was precisely that it might be advisable to increase the screening. But even now, it's not particularly visible from anywhere. And I don't see that as a problem. Thank you.
Right.
Chairman, can I just ask one thing? Are there plans to have to remove any trees to get this development in?
Omar?
No, it's an existing lawn, so it's going to be built on top of that, so that there are no trees to be removed.
Right. Anybody else on there? Yeah, right. Now we're going to how interesting planning committee meetings are. The recommendation is for refusal, as already been pointed out by the officer. Does anybody else want to put an alternative recommendation for the committee? No? Yes?
Permission should be granted.
So yeah, okay. Is anybody willing to second that? Well, Councillor Rubini was quicker than you, I'm afraid. And
Chair, can I maybe suggest to the committee that they'd like to consider delegating that to myself to add some planning conditions to
Yes.
achieve the outcomes that you might want to achieve from this site?
definitely,
Great.
definitely, yes. Right, well, we have an alternative for a proposal that the application is accepted subject to whatever Blair just said, the condition. With those in favour of that, please raise their hands.
Can I just clarify, I got a bit lost there.
You're accepting,
We are recommending granting permission.
yes,
With
an
the
outline.
proviso that, we're delegating authority to the head of planning to deal with all the conditions.
Yes,
Is
correct.
that what we're doing? Right.
Right, correct. Sorry about that. Right, and those in favour of that recommendation, please raise their hands. Against? And abstain. Yeah, the vote, please, Bella.
So that's 12 in favour of the amended recommendation and 2 abstentions. And 0 against.
Very good.
Three.
I counted three.
I counted.
14.
Is there- so
It will be
3
14, Chair, because councillor Wilden
14.
can't vote.
So it's 14, so 12 in favour and 2 abstentions.
Three.
Well,
Three
abstentions. What does-
It's appointed it.
And 11 for.
All right, okay. All right, thank you very much. Well, I will have a safe journey home. I look forward to seeing you.